Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a seriously fascinating journey, one that's heavily inspired by the brilliant insights of educator and scientist Tawheed Bot. We're going to explore a sweeping narrative that literally bridges ancient history, modern environmental crises, and, believe it or not, the very classrooms our students are sitting in right now. It's all about the profound impact of how a society chooses to value or, completely devalue knowledge. So, what exactly connects a fallen empire, a toxic water spring, and a high school schedule? I know, right? It sounds like the setup to a really strange riddle. But the answer is actually the whole foundation of what we're talking about today. It all comes down to how we as a society treat critical thinking and scientific inquiry. When we embrace it, civilizations absolutely thrive. But when we abandon it for, say, rote memorization and just careless convenience, well, the consequences are disastrous. And as you'll see, they get deeply personal.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, a lost scientific legacy and the cost of ignorance. So to really understand where we're going wrong today, we first have to look back at a time when we got it incredibly right. Picture this, it's the 8th century. While much of Europe was kind of stuck in intellectual stagnation, the Islamic Golden Age was literally laying the groundwork for modern science. Over in Baghdad, the Beit al-Hikmah, or House of Wisdom, rises up. And this wasn't just some dusty library, it was a massive, global hub of translation, research, and fierce innovation. Fast forward to the 11th century, and you've got absolute giants like Ibn Sina completely revolutionizing medicine with the Al-Qanun, and Al-Khwarizmi, who literally gave us algebra. Their science was deeply, deeply rooted in observation and the Quranic command to study nature. But then, in 1258, the catastrophic Mongol invasion hits Baghdad. It reduced these magnificent centers of learning to absolute ashes, completely breaking that continuity of knowledge.
But here's the thing. What's really fascinating, and kind of tragic, is that the historical decline of this golden age wasn't merely caused by the physical destruction of cities and books. Actually, scratch that. It was a much deeper, internal philosophical shift. The civilization transitioned away from something called ijtihad, which is independent reasoning, critical inquiry, and active exploration. Instead, it fully embraced taqlid, basically blind imitation and rote learning. Questioning, which used to be the ultimate strength of scholarship, suddenly started being viewed as a threat rather than a virtue. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of the whole problem. See, during the Golden Age, science was completely intertwined with ethics and human welfare. Studying the universe was literally seen as understanding the divine order. But during this modern decline we're talking about, science became completely divorced from ethical and social life. Religious texts that once inspired incredible breakthroughs in astronomy, medicine, and biology were suddenly confined merely to ritual practices, or ibadat. The spirit of deep reflection was just lost, and knowledge was totally separated from daily application.
Which brings us to part two, poisoning the pearls and the present environmental cost. All right, so this brings us to the devastating real-world consequences of abandoning that ethical applied science. We're pivoting from ancient Baghdad all the way to modern-day Kashmir to see exactly what this intellectual neglect looks like in our own physical environment. Now, Kashmir is absolutely adorned with breathtaking springs, places like Habakathun and Gariz, Varnag, and Ashbal. If Kashmir is a beautiful necklace, these springs are undoubtedly its pearls. Historically, they were absolute lifelines. I mean, they were 100% clean, providing cool water in the scorching summer and miraculously warm water in the freezing winter. Communities gathered around them, they held immense healing and spiritual significance. But today? Well, tragically, human negligence has turned these once pristine water bodies into contaminated skeletons, just clogged with plastic, garbage, and invisible poisons. And honestly, the invisible poisons are the most terrifying part of the whole shebang. A massive culprit here is a group of chemicals known as organophosphates. These are highly toxic chemicals that are heavily used in agricultural pesticides. Now, obviously, Kashmir's economy relies significantly on its beautiful apple orchards and saffron fields. But when it rains, all that unregulated runoff from these crops washes directly into the groundwater and right into the springs. And we're not just talking about mild irritants here. When consumed, these chemicals cause severe chronic health issues ranging from neurological disorders to cancer and even organ failure. This isn't just some theoretical environmental issue happening in the background. There are agonizing human stakes here. The recent tragedy in Badhal village of Jammu serves as a really heartbreaking wake-up call. Several innocent people literally lost their lives simply by drinking from a local contaminated spring. Doctors identified pesticide chemicals as the probable cause, which prompted this widespread government testing. And that testing revealed just how deeply compromised these vital water sources have actually become.
When that testing was done, the results were absolutely staggering. In just the Ganderbal district alone, 10 different springs were found to be heavily contaminated. We're talking about specific, unregulated culprits found lurking right in the water. Atrazine, bentazone, fipronil, glyphosate, alongside dangerously high levels of ammonium, nitrate, and sulfate. I really want you to consider this for a second. How does a society allow its own lifelines to be poisoned like this? Well, it happens because of a total lack of ethical scientific stewardship. The science of agriculture has been completely, 100% disconnected from the ethics of environmental preservation.
Let's look at where this starts in Part 3, the forgotten fifth subject and the educational blind spot.
So where does this massive disconnect actually begin? I mean, how do we raise a generation that sprays toxic chemicals without understanding or even caring about the groundwater? The answer, surprisingly, lies right in our classrooms. At the higher secondary level, students are required to choose a fifth subject. Now, the overwhelming perception among students is that this subject is just a burden, right? A guaranteed free period, or an easy backup chosen with absolutely zero academic counseling. Students will literally walk into the admissions office and just ask, hey, which subject is the easiest? But consider the professional reality here. This fifth subject was actually designed to be a vital gateway into modern science, healthcare, laboratory research, and technology. So the crucial point is that by taking the easy way out, students are completely ignoring these incredibly powerful gateway subjects. We are talking about biotechnology, biochemistry, microbiology, mathematics, and crucially, environmental science, which is literally the exact discipline required to solve the springs crisis we were just talking about. But instead of engaging with these amazing fields, so many students get completely distracted by dummy admissions where they only focus on cracking competitive exams like NEET or JEE. They are totally bypassing the holistic, ethical, scientific education they so desperately need.
Which leads us to our final segment, Part 4, Reclaiming Our Mindful Future, a multidisciplinary solution.
Look, we just cannot afford to continue this cycle of blind imitation and rote learning. It is actively destroying both our intellect and our environment. But there is a roadmap out of this crisis, and it connects modern educational reform right back to that historical legacy of deep, ethical inquiry we started with. The National Education Policy, or NEP 2020, provides a super clear vision for recovery here. It aggressively promotes multidisciplinary learning and skill-based, career-oriented education. It essentially proves that the flexibility of that fifth subject was never meant to reduce academic seriousness. No, it was designed to integrate critical thinking and a scientific temperament back into mainstream schooling. It's all about reviving that holistic learning approach where science actually serves society. And when we apply that multidisciplinary, educated mindset to the real world, we get actionable solutions. Like, to save the springs, we absolutely must regulate pesticide use and embrace organic farming. We need robust government and community conservation programs. We have to enforce strict pollution controls and hand out legal fines. And most importantly, we've got to educate both the locals and the tourists on proper waste disposal. We need a whole new generation of agricultural scientists and environmentalists who view nature ethically, effectively bridging that huge gap between the classroom and the real world. I want to share this beautiful quote from the classical work Kitab al-Aruj because it just perfectly ties our entire narrative together. It says, "The story of Muslim scientific brilliance is not merely a chapter of history, it is a mirror for the present and a roadmap for the future. Nations rise through knowledge and fall through neglect of intellect." Wow. It just reminds us that applied, ethical intellect isn't just some academic exercise. It is literally the key to our survival and the preservation of our world. Which leaves us with a final, really vital question to think about. As a student, a parent, a citizen, will you treat education as a mere ritual, just a box to check, an easy fifth subject to ignore? Or will you embrace it as a powerful tool to solve real-world problems and actually save our future? The choice is entirely up to us. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this sparks a new curiosity in how you view the world around you. Catch you next time.